Continuing from the previous part, the first test was not challenging for the main character. Meanwhile, at Base 105, Practice Testing Center Number 2, Dong Jin was surrounded by several monsters armed with wooden sticks. He had incredibly high-level skills but seemed awkward when facing these monsters. He almost got hit in the head by one of them. Luckily, he reacted quickly and managed to block the attack and kick the beast away. Just then, another monster attacked from behind, but Dong Jin swung his sword, slashing the monster and forcing it to retreat. There were still 2 more monsters left, and seeing Dong Jin's actions, they fell into contemplation. This was the second part of the practical test, also known as the Special Weapon Proficiency Test. It was simpler than expected because it was just about demonstrating the skills learned at the Hunter Corps to the examiners. Thus, the test ended. Strength and speed in the movements weren't important, just following the sequence to pass. Naturally, Kim Min-jong scored perfectly. Most candidates chose swordsmanship for the test, and among them, Dong Jin received a very high score, but now he looked no different from a flailing insect. In the final part of the test, also known as the Monster Confrontation Handling Skills, the privates had to defeat 4 hunting dogs while the corporals had to defeat 3 goblins using the special weapons they had chosen. They were truly fighting a real battle. Finally, Dong Jin managed to clear out all the goblins. The instructor seemed quite disappointed with his performance in this test. Lee Dong Jin, panting heavily, left dejectedly. From Kim Min-jun's perspective, Dong Jin had many chances to slash the goblins, but each time he hesitated, perhaps not trusting his strength. Right after Dong Jin was Kim Min-jun's turn. He silently told himself that Dong Jin should watch and learn from him because today, nothing could stop him from becoming a sergeant. He would show how detrimental Dong Jin's habit could be. To everyone's surprise, Kim Min-jun confidently carried a baseball bat with some nails attached to it as he entered the battle. Even the instructor doubted this choice, thinking he was making it hard for himself. 3 goblins, varying in size, were released. It was simply about fighting. This was his specialty. All 3 attacked at once, but Kim Min-jun just stood there, resting his bat on his waist. To him, they were like rabbits, and he was the eagle. With just one swift move, he swept them up like an eagle grabbing rabbits. All 3 were defeated at once, taking only 4 seconds to finish the test. Everyone there wore expressions of disbelief, amazed that someone so skilled existed in the 104th Division. People were overwhelmed with emotions as if they had won. Kim Min-jong intended to bask in this glorious moment without any complaints. Sun Yunseo truly couldn't understand if he was some kind of demon or deity. Finally, it ended. The lieutenant couldn't help but praise Kim Min-jun, as he was the best performer among them. Even he was surprised by his rapid rank promotion, almost reporting the wrong title. Although he was the only one promoted this time, the battalion commander was pleased after hearing the report, celebrating happily. Never before had a corporal passed the practical test with such incredible scores, so Kim Min-jong essentially carried the team. Before returning to the division, Kim Min-jong gave Dong Jin a friendly pat on the shoulder, as this would be the last time he'd see this decent side of Kim Min-jong. He was ready for special training with Dong Jin. Surprisingly, Sun Yunseo was also there. She had been promoted to corporal. She also performed well in the monster elimination test. Promotion was inevitable, but what did it matter? Even after sitting down, she kept looking at him. She seemed to want to apologize for the test score, then saw him pressing his face against the car window, conveying a message with exaggerated expressions. If she provoked him again, she'd be finished with him. Before Sun Yunseo could react, the car started moving. Was this guy crazy? On the bus, the buddies started asking about him and Sun Yunseo. But the main character blandly said that he only provoked her a bit to reduce her fighting spirit. The excited group suddenly went silent. No one believed that her fiery gaze was just provocation. Then they all turned to criticize him for not being gentle with the hot girl of the 104th Division. Under the numerous accusations, Kim Min-jong calmly stated that she wasn't his ideal type. Of course, after saying that, no one let him off the hook and criticized him even more fiercely. Someone, unable to hold back, pointed directly at him and asked who his ideal type was. Kim Min-jong didn't hesitate to blurt out a name, Lumi, which made everyone freeze in place. Who is she? The number 1 beauty in Dungeon Power Fighter, of course. Well, there's no saving this case now. Back at the dormitory, the entire room enjoyed a feast of fried chicken, courtesy of their team leader. It was the first time they had seen such treatment there, proving his extremely good mood. So, the hero of this trip had to eat a lot to do it justice. So quickly, he had already gained 3 stripes. Redhead felt that the prospect of being promoted to sergeant wasn't far off. At that moment, Lee Sungo returned with a crate of beer and called for Team 2 to gather in the lounge. Right now, while the team was feasting, they were suddenly summoned like this. Many question marks arose. Lee Sung-go brought back a promotion reward sent personally by the platoon leader but then kicked out those not involved. So, everyone had to hurriedly relocate. Redhead was very displeased with Lee Sung-go's attitude. The night was late, the moon high, yet someone was sneaking around, none other than Kim Min-jong. Seeing that there was no one around, he dared to use dark energy to call out the ghost girl to inquire. After a brief chat, he assigned her a mission to exploit her labor. This was the essence of capitalism, using surplus value for enrichment. Kim Min-jong instructed her to keep their movement secret from now on. She was to tail anyone with a high military rank. This was espionage, not just a substitute puppet anymore. But as long as it worked, that was fine. Her task was to gather information on unusual phenomena and report back to him, especially situations suspected of having demonic energy. Hearing this, the little black ghost extended her hand. Kim Min-jong understood and immediately fed her. After eating, she cheerfully went off to carry out her mission, but her enthusiastic departure left him feeling uneasy. If she got caught, it would surely cause chaos. She hadn't been caught yet, but it seemed Kim Min-jong had been discovered. The person who appeared right behind him was Lee Sung-go. He quickly made up an excuse about getting some fresh air after drinking a fair amount of alcohol. In reality, dark wizards don't know what drunkenness is, they don't even get poisoned, let alone affected by a bit of alcohol. Lee Sung-go congratulated him on his promotion and specifically reminded him to maintain his performance, also reminding him not to stay out too late, at least not before everyone in the room was passed out. Phew, next time, he needed to be more careful, or he might just die of a heart attack. That person was a serious soldier, but he wasn't unpleasant at all. The next day, the division leaders reviewed reports to continue closely following Kim Min-jung. Hearing about his 4-second monster-slaying record, the commander received endless praise from superiors over the phone and was equally delighted. Within less than a month, he had climbed to the rank of corporal. The progress was astonishing, and they suspected it might not be as simple as they thought. But rumors spread quickly. If that were the case, the Special Forces Brigade, the Hunters, would also take notice of him. The battalion commander was thinking that Kim Min-jung could reach that level. Countless monsters had appeared here before, and Kim Min-jung was the new generation of beasts. Meanwhile, he was surrounded by monsters, armed only with a blunt stick like during the test. Yet he showed no fear and even smiled with delight, a very unusual smile. Returning to when Kim Min-jung got back to his room and finished showering, by then, everyone was already drunk, with only him and Lee Sung-go remaining sober. Lee Sung-go's body was so impressive that even Kim Min-jung was mesmerized. Lee Sung-go asked if he had ever been to the gym, and now, as a sergeant, he could use it freely. Then he remembered the unit's combat simulator was better and suggested Kim Min-jung try it out. Hearing this, Kim Min-jung couldn't resist any longer and had to go see it immediately. Kim Min-jung excitedly opened the door and chose orcs as his monsters. As for the number, he kept pressing without stopping until the machine announced that the maximum number he could select was 30, at which point he finally stopped. Planning to go big and then limited like this was a bit disappointing. Next was selecting the weapon. After that, it was just playing. The battle began. The terrain around Kim Min-jung transformed into a desert. Orcs, both big and small, came in droves. Kim Min-jung was like a tiger released back into the wild. Feeling the satisfaction of each strike, he began to rampage. If any monster escaped from Kim Min-jung's blunt stick, it was only because they were dreaming. Kim Min-jung was thrilled by the realistic sensation. It wasn't long before the last monster was defeated. Kim Min-jung felt a bit regretful that there were only 30 monsters, it ended too quickly, and he didn't feel satisfied yet. So he continued by choosing 30 of each monster type. That totaled 120 monsters. This was truly a monster hunt. Surrounded by monsters, he showed no signs of panic. He even waited until they all gathered before attacking. As soon as the countdown ended, the monsters charged forward. They formed a chaotic formation, and his character began to twist. Diving into the fight, it seemed he was in a euphoric state, no one could be this monstrous. Kim Min-jung immersed himself in combat regardless of species, number, or size. Wherever his blunt club swung, monsters fell, wherever he fought, creatures died on the spot. Yet with just a few basic moves, he took down 120 monsters of various levels, laughing breathlessly. Truly insane. So he knows he's crazy too. Kim Min-jung sighed, saying this was the second most interesting thing, just behind playing games. Yet it activated both skill techniques and primitive weapons, what a talent. Is this what it means to be blessed by the gods? Although he didn't expect to gain this skill, it fell from the sky, and not using it would be insane. It's a fantastic day. He'll have to come here to play every day. Just as he left the room, he bumped into Dong Jin. Looking at the game result board of Kim Min-jung, Dongjin was shaking, and both fell silent. After a while, Lee Dongjin stammered, "Did you defeat all of these by yourself, Sergeant Kim Min-jun?" "Yes, I did," replied Kim Min-jun. 120 of them, isn't it crazy?" Not knowing how to explain, he suddenly had an idea. Kim Min-jun put on a serious face and asked Dongjin to meet him for a moment. Lee Dongjin thought he was talking about the gym incident, but no. People don't do things like that. Kim Min-jun gave a twisted smile, saying it was training for Dongjin. He then pushed Dongjin into the simulation room without giving him a chance to protest. Dongjin was desperately begging, but it was too late. After they entered, the third person to see the scoreboard was Kim Gwangshik. He was so shocked he froze on the spot. The next day, snow-blanketed Division 104. Kim Gwangshik returned with a stiff, gloomy expression. He asked people in the room where Kim Min-jun was and learned everyone went to the warehouse to prepare for snow clearing. Kim Min-jun said he'd stay in the gym to train until the work started. After speaking, the guy realized he had subconsciously used honorifics when referring to Kim Min-jun. But surprisingly, Kim Gwangshik didn't get angry. He even asked Jin Cheol-ho to pass a message to Kim Min-jun that the platoon leader was looking for him. Cheol-ho quickly used this excuse to escape before Kim Gwangshik changed his mind. Inside, everyone was betting on how long it would take for Kim Min-jun to become a squad leader. They asked if Kim Gwangshik wanted to join their bet. He looked at the paper and then heard his teammates arguing about not being able to become a squad leader within 6 months. Kim Gwangshik quietly wrote something and tossed it on the bed. Everyone was shocked to see that he wrote only 1 month. The long-haired guy felt this guy was crazier than himself. At the gym, Kim Min-jun was vigorously lifting weights to build muscle. Why hadn't he gained any muscle after lifting weights for days? Although his strength stats increased, enhancing combat effectiveness, this didn't satisfy him. Feeling discouraged, he saw a notification indicating his combat strength had risen to level 5, making him blush with joy. Cheol-ho had arrived and told him the platoon leader was looking for him. In Kim Min-jun's eyes now, only skill mattered. He happily put on his clothes and thanked Cheol-ho. A while later, he arrived at the administrative office. The person in charge there warmly welcomed him and handed him a file. This was from the company commander, a certificate of merit that seemed quite simple, but all achievements were recorded. If these achievements and certificates are recognized, can I be specially promoted? The administrative officer was also seeing such a passionate person for the first time. Just seeing Kim Min-jun's excited face made it hard to bluntly tell him that this wasn't easy. Kim Min-jun was determined not to give up, offering a deal of 10 certificates for 1 promotion. The administrative officer was left speechless. "These are merit certificates, not discount coupons," they laughed. A few days later, the team had a mission to attack a dungeon as previously announced. The dungeon they were attacking today was the rat monster lair. The soldiers were already pale with fear upon hearing this. Kim Min-jun, Jong Han-young, and Lee Dongjin were in a team. In front of them were Lieutenant Kim Cheol-min and squad leader Lee Sung-ho. This sewer dungeon was home to rat monsters. Although not considered a highly dangerous dungeon, over 200 rat monsters typically appeared. The cramped cave space limited gun usage, making this dungeon a challenging test. At this time, Kim Cheol-min was discussing the terrain with Lee Sung-ho. Besides the squad's movement route, this space had only 1 entrance. The strategy was to lure the rats here. Due to the stench in the dungeon, soldiers had to use specialized gas masks designed for the hunter corps. The situation made it difficult for hunters to perform at their full potential. Ripe bananas were used as specialized bait for rat monsters. The soldiers turned pale. If the rats only ate this, the smell wouldn't be too bad. While the lieutenant was directing soldiers to set bait, he suddenly noticed human bones scattered on the ground. Before fear set in, someone reported that rats were approaching, mostly through the forward entrance. Private soldiers were positioned to guard the rear with the squad vice captain. Everyone was urged to hold their positions. Whoever caught more would be treated to a meal. The rats finally charged forward, and the soldiers were ordered to hold their ground. Kim Min-jun saw the rat as if it had a certificate of merit hanging on it, eagerly excited. Everyone competed to slash rats as if playing Fruit Ninja, with no difficulty at all. Everyone was quite skilled. With his usual crude weapon, Kim Min-jun swung and took down 3 rats at once. He also noticed 2 people behind him were strong opponents. They were Sergeant Kim Min-ji and Lieutenant Kim Kul-min. An entire vast area was defended by only the 2 of them. Indeed, rank was not simply achieved. Lee Dongjin was now slashing rats more decisively, having improved since yesterday's training. When a side called for support, Kim Min-jun immediately volunteered. Kim Gwangshik heard this, glanced at him, and then swung his sword to slice a rat in half. Rats appeared at the rear. Some soldiers were dispatched there for defense rather than concentrating on offense. The red-haired man, using his dual swords to fight the rats, was thrilled as their numbers dwindled. Just then, Kim Min-jun detected a familiar smell. Thanks to his gas mask, he could identify it even more easily. He began looking around and saw a crack forming right beneath a soldier's feet. They were coming from underground. He quickly shouted a warning. Sure enough, just as he finished speaking, there was a boom as a column of energy shot up from the ground, forcing the soldiers to leap aside. The new threat was a gigantic irregular. There was no doubt it was responsible for the pile of bones nearby. Kim Gwangshik was so terrified by its presence that he couldn't move. Trembling, he realized he was in danger but couldn't react. Someone shouted from behind, urging him to regain his senses and get out of the way. Unfortunately, the rat had already swung its long claws at him. Just when he thought it was the end for him, a swoosh cut through the air. Someone had charged in and slashed at the rat with a sword. Lee Dongjin grabbed Gwangshik by the shoulder, telling him to retreat. The furious creature continued its attack, and just as it seemed the two men would be crushed beneath its massive claws, Kim Min-jun appeared with a shield. With crazed eyes and an unusual strength, he wielded his shield against the dark energy of the rat. Landing squarely on its head, he flashed a thumbs up at Lee Dongjin. But the real battle was just beginning. Kim Min-jun was ordered to retreat so that the commanders could handle it, but he refused to listen. The rat, using its dark energy, caused rocks and dirt from the cave to rain down, preventing the warriors from getting close. This was an ideal situation. Just when he worried someone might witness this, he kicked the rat forcefully. The rat, in pain, retreated and used sonic waves to attack. Kim Min-jun quickly used his shield to block it, then charged forward, punching the rat in the face repeatedly. Once the rat was completely unconscious, he absorbed its dark energy. His magic stat increased by 1. It was at least somewhat worthwhile. As they exited the dungeon, the privates joked and laughed. A sergeant made a phone call to report the situation, stating that their team member had subdued the irregular creature. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jun sniffed himself, cringing at the awful stench. The long-haired man approached, patting Kim Min-jun's belly in praise. From mosquitoes to monsters, Kim Min-jun left nothing alive, which was why they all survived. Kim Min-jun apologized for charging ahead, but the long-haired man said it was a sudden situation. Without quick action, Gwangshik and Dongjin would have been the first casualties. Their commander interjected into their conversation after ending his call. He asked if Kim Min-jun was uninjured and, upon confirmation, sighed, telling him to report to the unit upon return, then left looking dejected. Nearby, the scar-faced sergeant was also reporting on their status. After checking on the injured team members, he approached and patted his comrades on the back. Due to the unexpected situation, the dungeon assault would stop here. After equipment checks, they would prepare to return. Kim Min-jun went to the administration office, with nothing else to do but recount the mission process. Having taken down the monsters, he felt lost, unsure of what to write. He couldn't very well say he used his shield to swat the beast like a fly. Who would believe that? The sergeant placed a bottle in front of him, saying that although his view was blocked, he vaguely saw him defeat the monster with his bare hands. Kim Min-jun awkwardly laughed it off, saying the situation prompted his actions without thinking. The sergeant asked for his stats, and upon hearing Kim Min-jun recite a series of numbers mostly in the 60s, he was mentally crushed. Even a lieutenant like him only had stats in the 40s. Leaning back in his chair, he remarked that with such capabilities, Kim Min-jun could attend the Hunter Officer Academy. But having just graduated high school, he knew getting into that school was tough. The lieutenant suggested that if leadership was his goal, college could be an option. But hearing about the myriad courses, Kim Min-jun was intimidated, feeling the pressure everyone else did. Kim Min-jun smiled, saying he wasn't interested in advancement, just good enough performance. However, if he changed his mind, the lieutenant was willing to help. He offered to complete the report for him. Before leaving, the lieutenant sincerely thanked him. In that dire situation, Kim Min-jun's bravery prevented what could have been disastrous, essentially carrying the team on his back. To Kim Min-jun, it was merely the right thing to do to expedite his promotion. There was an issue, though, with injured Kim Gwangshik, wrapped in bandages, requesting special training with Lee Dongjin. When asked why, he resolutely pointed to Lee Dongjin, citing his significant improvement and desire to achieve the same. Naturally, Kim Min-jun didn't easily agree. With a stern expression, he hinted at something, and luckily, Gwangshik caught on quickly, bowing deeply to thank and apologize to Lee Dongjin sincerely. Although Lee Dongjin pleaded for Kim Min-jun on his behalf, he wasn't satisfied. He had one condition. For the next 24 hours, if you walk around imitating a pigeon, I'll consider it. Kim Gwangshik was red with frustration, yet his mouth twisted out a cooing noise, leaving Lee Dongjin bewildered. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jun chuckled like a witch, happy to have another companion. Elsewhere, at Isgard, a mysterious covered wagon was being pushed. When asked why, the saintess, with a wicked smile, said it was a gift for Kim Min-jun for leaving without permission. But no matter what she did, it never felt enough. That woman wasn't a saintess but a witch. She kidnapped him and acted as though she had birthed him. Meanwhile, a group was being herded to dig dirt. The red-haired one wailed miserably from digging dirt to carrying stones. They were the army's slaves. Kim Gwangshik reminded them that this term was only for them to use with each other. The stone, called iron stone, was used to build fortresses because no one knew if it was iron or rock. While everyone struggled with a single piece, Kim Min-jun carried 2 on each shoulder, making Gwangshik wonder if they were weak or if the stones were light. But that wasn't the end. The next round saw him carrying 4 pieces at once. After moving stones, they had a 10-minute break. The scar-faced sergeant approached the squad leader about the empty dungeon appearing in Division 104. Upon hearing the term empty dungeon, the soldiers' faces turned as pale as sheets. They dreaded the thought of entering a dungeon again. The red-haired and brown-haired ones were so distraught that they clung to Sergeant Min-ji's legs, crying. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jun listened, not understanding what was happening. An empty dungeon was larger inside than standard, with more monsters than usual but lacking a boss or highly dangerous creature. It was an ideal environment for hunters to gain real combat experience, so before actual deployment, the squad would conduct division-level training there. Kim Gwangshik explained this to Kim Min-jun, who then jokingly asked whom he'd been talking to all this time. Knowing Kim Min-jun was teasing, he didn't bother engaging. What he just described wasn't the training Kim Min-jun needed. Watching the others cry was annoying. The squad leader reminded them that division-level training was a chance to earn many points. Hearing this, Kim Min-jun was fired up with determination. His excitement turned to confusion when he spotted the little shadow demon, wondering why it was there. He quickly covered it with his foot. Meanwhile, the red-haired and brown-haired soldiers continued whining to Sergeant Min-ji. Touching the little demon, Kim Min-jun accessed its memory, which revealed a request for reinforcements. Irregular monsters had emerged in Yanggu, within a civilian area, causing 2 investigators to suddenly go mad. Yet, leadership only tasked the regular army with securing the area, while hunters were ordered to prioritize dungeons in Hong Cheon's residential areas. Kim Min-jun, with a grin like a witch, thought about using his vacation days for once. Before the sun had reached its zenith, Kim Min-jun was already awake. Judging by the dark circles under his eyes, it seemed he had failed to wake up early to succeed. Glancing at the family photo on the TV stand nearby, a picture in which he wasn't present, Min-jun recalled the story of his request for leave. The photo showed a family of 4, the squad leader's family. When Min-jun went to ask for leave, the squad leader smiled so broadly that it could have lit up the room, saying, "I don't know why, but you were moving stones several times faster than the others at the construction site. Are you trying to finish quickly to take your leave? You are something, great job." Being praised, Min-jun thanked him, but the squad leader's intention wasn't entirely a compliment. Nonetheless, he inquired about Min-jun's plans during his leave. Min-jun shyly mentioned that he had stayed at a net cafe last time and planned to visit a restricted area this time. The squad leader had anticipated this, sighed, and handed Min-jun the keys to his parents' apartment. They had moved to another place due to work, so it was empty. The squad leader stayed there whenever he was on leave, ensuring the apartment was clean. Min-jun said he was fine, but the squad leader didn't agree. He handed Min-jun an address he'd already written down, saying, "If you don't use it, you won't get leave." The apartment was in Chuncheon, Gangwon Province, not a bad direction for the leave itinerary. Before Min-jun left, the squad leader advised him to keep the keys and enjoy his leave. After Min-jun left, the squad leader sat on his chair, sighed, glanced at Min-jun's resume on the table, suddenly grimaced, and decisively turned away, thinking, out of sight, out of mind. Returning to Kim Min-jun, he suddenly smiled contentedly as he looked at someone else's family photo, then put on a hood and left. On the way, he recalled the words of a blonde girl who advised him not to approach within 1 kilometer but to control the roads to plan the next move. Ahead, a guard post was already set up. If the direct path wasn't possible, he would just jump over it. After a few steps on the rooftops, Min-jun approached the entrance of the dungeon. He was eager to see which kid would be here this time. He needed to find out which monster had escaped, but thinking of the only mischievous one being the lively little ghost made him dismiss the idea. If it were a dangerous creature, it would just jump out. Min-jun continued into the dungeon. Inside, it was a gloomy forest, as if shrouded in winter. Many ancient trees stood bare, their gnarled branches resembling ghostly arms, and it was so damp that one couldn't help but comment on it. After walking for a while, Min-jun accidentally spotted a broken sword blade, indicating a battle had taken place there. "Hey, some demon over there, you're too obvious, just jump out already." "I'm too used to sniffing out monsters with all my senses," he said. Squatting, the first thing he noticed was a tattered loincloth between its legs, and purple-black eyes brimming with malevolent energy. Its long fangs protruded beyond its mouth, preventing it from closing properly. Approaching was a goblin. Why not a kobold? But why was this dwarf demon so large? The investigative team must have had a hard time surviving here. This creature was chubby yet jumped high. Who knew if it had practiced some martial arts, but its claw swipe was formidable. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to threaten Minjun. He reacted with lightning speed, delivering a seismic punch in an instant, the blue energy almost illuminating the sky, yet surprisingly, he couldn't break the demon's teeth. It seized the chance to bite affectionately, but Minjun quickly kicked it, slamming its lower jaw into the upper one. As Minjun landed, he marveled, "Truly a resilient guy, surviving my punch, huh?" The previous kick scattered many things but still hadn't diminished the goblin's fierce fighting spirit. The green demon lunged again, intending to pounce once more, but with Minjun, it was always a miss. "By the way, watch your step, sweetheart. I've added a rotting skill to soften the ground there, so you've sunk into a mire, haven't you? Well, sorry for you, because I won't wait any longer, I'm coming to punch you now." A barrage of punches rained down on its face, yet the creature remained tough, only losing the ability to bite. Another punch was poised for the goblin's exposed weak spot, but it was blocked with a bent arm. Momentarily stunned, Minjun was clawed by the demon's other hand. It lowered its arm, revealing its exposed area, but by then, Minjun had been knocked back, landing not far away. Seeing his torn shirt, he noticed the broken sword nearby and picked it up. "The ones I've encountered since returning have been like ants, and you must be the size of a horned beetle." The goblin let out a long hiss and swung its claws again, this time aiming directly at Minjun's handsome yet troublesome face. "Even if you're like that, a bug is still just a bug. You're testing my patience, you brat." Kim Minjun, seething with anger, shouted, "My new shirt." He then mercilessly thrust the broken sword into the creature's exposed area. The goblin let out a long, uncontrolled scream and collapsed. But Minjun wasn't finished. He executed a textbook-perfect leg split, stomping the head of the little rascal that ruined his shirt. Naturally, he didn't forget to collect the dark energy. Despite its appearance, this goblin provided a substantial increase in stats, boosting Minjun's dark energy thrice over. The skills Dark Arrow was unlocked, Night Movement was enhanced, and Basic Swordsmanship was developed. Look at this beautiful stat chart. Dark Arrow at level E expends dark energy to shoot an invisible arrow at its target. Basic Swordsmanship at level E significantly improves proficiency with weapons like swords and knives. Kim Minjun grinned uncontrollably at the long-range attack skill. Why is Basic Swordsmanship here too? Could it be due to the critical punch he threw earlier? Either way, it's a blessing from the heavens not to be wasted. In hindsight, the goblin had been injured before Minjun encountered it. What was that flashing thing earlier? He dissected it to find out. Looking at what he held in his hand, Minjun was stunned with surprise. It was a sharp piece of metal of indeterminate shape, possibly the tip of an arrow or a broken blade. Whether it was the result of a hunter from the investigative team stabbing it was unclear, but it seemed familiar, like something he had seen before but couldn't recall. At that moment, 3 more goblins appeared right behind Minjun. "Just in time, as I wanted to try out my new skill. Let me put this evidence away. Then I'll play with you guys. Come here." The 3 goblins, seeing their fallen comrade, ground their teeth in rage. Kim Minjun was also ready, his hands glowing with energy, fearing nothing. "Let's test the power of this level E skill." With that, 2 streams of dark energy shot out at lightning speed with the force of nuclear missiles, finishing off the 2 demons on either side in an instant. Kim Minjun felt more energized than ever. Although his main task was done, he didn't mind dispatching a few more friends. The remaining goblin was so scared it could barely see straight. With a trademark devilish smile, Kim Minjun taunted it, "Where are your friends hiding?" What happened next? Nothing. When Kim Minjun left the dungeon, he was more satisfied than ever. The dungeon was cleared, so it was time to return and play games. Before he knew it, it was time to return to the military. Today, there was another field trip. The whole squad was marching across an open field. Few were excited about this trip. Kim Minjun's face remained impassive. He had ended his leave satisfied, having gathered a lot of dark energy, gained new skills, and spent time at the net cafe eating ramen and playing games. When he returned, feeling lighthearted, the entire squad seemed as if they were in mourning. It was all because of those 3 words, empty dungeon. Once again, the squad leader led the group. Each squad started from a random point, moving toward the center of the dungeon, dealing with the monsters that emerged and any unexpected situations. Just as he finished speaking, monsters appeared, and the squad leader ordered everyone to prepare for battle, spotting targets on the hill ahead. Previously, everyone's spirits had been sluggish, but now everyone was in serious mode except for our protagonist, who just kept grinning. From the hill, a swarm of round balls with sharp fangs rolled down at breakneck speed. They were called dark balls. The entire squad was ordered to load and aim. Kim Min-jun sent a wide smile about this exciting training session, just as predicted. The command to fire echoed, and everyone simultaneously opened fire. These black balls were tougher than they looked. The scar-faced sergeant shouted reminders to everyone: dark balls have thick skin and high elasticity, making them hard to suppress with melee weapons. They must be dealt with before they get too close. The squad gave it their all, but these things rolled fast. As they got closer, hand-to-hand combat was necessary. Only 3 remained, but they were fierce. If they started latching on and sucking blood, it would be hard to eliminate them on the spot, so they needed to be avoided. Balls in appearance but leeches in nature. This also meant the moment they bit was the moment they ended. At this moment, a dark ball was rolling towards 3 anxious soldiers, its long tongue flicking out. Kim Min-jun immediately rushed over, calling out to Corporal Lee Sung-ho while delivering a powerful kick that sent the creature flying back, specifically straight into the sky, a kick that left onlookers speechless. If no one were around, it would have been taken out with a dark arrow long ago, not soaring through the air. Taking advantage, the other soldiers fired to finish it off. Kim Min-jun continued his job of kicking balls for his teammates to shoot down. Balls should accept being kicked instead of sucking blood. Thus, the entire swarm was wiped out without a trace. After the battle, the squad leader gave everyone a 10-minute rest and checked their gear to see if anyone was injured. Once the check was complete, each sub-team reported to their leader. Then, the leader turned to pat Kim Min-jun on the back. Others couldn't stop giving him a thumbs up. Kim Gwangshik and Lee Dong-jin exchanged glances before quickly turning away. The 2 with blonde and red hair, who had hit rock bottom, immediately zoned out as soon as the break began. The red-haired one sighed, "This training is harder than last time. We've had several breaks just from fighting." The blonde-haired one, feeling out of it, spoke unclearly, but he had heard rumors. This wasn't an empty dungeon. There was a boss monster here before, a great elephant that was punched back to the earth by Lord Dustar, the bearded general, to make it a training ground. There were rumors that it was captured alive and kept at the dungeon's rendezvous point, which would surely be destroyed. The 2 young men were on the verge of tears. At this moment, the scar-faced sergeant came over and threw his arms around their shoulders, saying, "Let's go, break time's over." Standing from afar and hearing this story, Kim Min-jun thought that Lord Dustar of the Hunter Corps was quite something. The whole squad was on the move again. The 2 troubled young men kept shouting for help. Just then, the squad leader stopped the group. He saw something. Suddenly, he was in a panic, and the entire team was confused, including Kim Min-jun. Sitting in the middle of the road with a sign indicating he was injured was none other than Dustar. But why was he smiling so widely if he was hurt? Meanwhile, in another land, an old man with white hair and beard was sitting, smoking a cigarette, when a young man in an iron helmet approached. The old man didn't need the young man to speak, he already knew that he had broken his sword again because he was used to this. Furthermore, because he supported that woman, he didn't mind. Nevertheless, this level of damage is a bit too much. And this broken part looks all too familiar. And that's it for today. See you in the next part. Peace.